Dear all, welcome to this video. Now in the last video, we discussed the prefatory parts of a research report. Now in this video, I'm going to discuss the main body of a research report. Now as you can see here, in the main body, we have several chapters. So we have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, then chapter 4, 5 and 6. So 6 chapters in the main body part. Again, don't get confused that it is going to be a huge report. We have substantially reduced the size of each chapters. So when you submit your report or when we give you an assignment, we will make sure that each chapter is of limited size. So let's start with chapter 1. Chapter 1 is basically the introduction chapter. So it's not any rocket science. It's just like any introduction of a question or an introduction of an essay. It's as simple as that. So what do we have in an introduction chapter? Let me give you an example of what can we have in this chapter. So this was the document that we went through earlier. Now if we go down, we will see that here, here, chapter 1, introduction. The introduction chapter tells the reader or whoever is going to read your report what the topic of the paper is in general terms, why the topic is important, and what to expect in the whole paper. So that is in general what we write in an introduction. So again, there is no hard and fast rule of writing an introduction. The main point is you have to introduce your full report in the introduction chapter. Now for your convenience, I have a sample report here. Let me go there. This is the topic of the report, Female Managerial Perceptions of Work-Life Balance, case study of Regatta Limited headquarters. Just a disclaimer, this is not my report, this is not what I have done. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to write an introduction here. So if we go down, you see chapter 1, introduction. So if you want to have an idea how to write an introduction, I would request you to go through this introduction chapter. It's only 1 and 2, so 1.5 pages long. So this chapter is only 1.5 page long. So don't worry that a chapter on introduction that's going to be huge. That's not the case. Another point I would like to make here is do not get scared by looking at the length of the report. It is a 70-page report. Never ever think that we are going to ask a 70-page report from you. Never, never. So do not worry about the length of your report. Alright? So it's going to be much smaller than this. So let's go back to our document again. So we are done with chapter 1. Now in chapter 2 we have literature review. I have already uploaded a video on literature review in the earlier class. So I would request all of you to watch that video. That is very detailed on how to write a literature review, how to structure a literature review, and everything else on literature review. Now those of you who have gone through that video, you should understand what do I mean by subtopic 1, subtopic 2, subtopic 3 and so on. So under literature review chapter, we can have several subtopics or subheadings. So just to give you an example, if I go back to the report again, so here I have chapter 2. So here see, we have literature review. Now as I said earlier, there can be multiple subheadings. So this is one subheading. If I go down, this is another subheading. This is another subheading, and it goes on. So a literature review can have multiple subheadings, just as this one. So in your report, you might have several subheadings or subtopics as well. We are done with literature review. I would request you again to go to the previous class and listen to the literature review video. Now moving on to chapter 3. In chapter 3, we are going to write about research questions. So these are the different topics that we are going to discuss in this chapter. So first, identification of research gap. We have not discussed this issue yet, so I'm going to take a class on that. So for now, it's okay if you do not understand this. I will explain it in the later videos. Research question, I have discussed this already in the previous video. Broad objective, yes, I have discussed it. Specific objective, yes, it has been discussed. Then list of hypotheses, this has not been discussed yet, so do not worry, we will get to this topic later. Then scope of research, again not discussed yet. Limitations of research, yes, we have discussed it already. And finally, significance and contribution of the study. Again, we will discuss it in the later videos. So as you can see here, in chapter 3, we have discussed some of the topics and some of the remaining topics are yet to be discussed. So do not worry, in the future classes, after explaining each of these concepts, we will ask you to finish this chapter. So we will not ask you to write this chapter right now. Once we finish explaining all the topics under this chapter, only then we will ask you to write this chapter. Now moving on to chapter 4, research methodology. We haven't discussed any topic under this chapter. Again, we will discuss all of these topics under this chapter in the upcoming classes. So do not worry if you do not understand any topic under this chapter. It's very normal. So in the upcoming 3 to 4 lectures or classes, we are going to discuss all of these topics. And once we are done discussing those topics, it will be very easy for you to understand what to write under chapter 4 and what to write in research methodology. Now moving on to the next chapter is chapter 5, which is data analysis and findings. Again, we haven't discussed any of the subtopics here. This specific chapter will be covered after the midterm. So again, do not worry. Now finally we have chapter 6, which is conclusion. So we will talk about it at the very end of the semester. So these are all the different chapters we will have to cover in our research report, in the main body of our research report. So as you can see, we have discussed thoroughly only chapter 2 till now and some of the concepts of chapter 3. Again, I am emphasizing this point again. Do not worry if you don't understand what do I mean by chapter 4, what do I mean by chapter 5. All of these concepts will be discussed in the upcoming lectures. So wait for the lectures. Before that, you do not have to do anything regarding chapter 4 or chapter 5 or chapter 6. So all you have to do now is chill, okay? The only reason I'm taking you through this whole document is to give you an idea of the whole structure of the report. That is it. So we are done with the main body of the report. In the next video, I'm going to discuss the supplementary parts or the ending parts of the report. See you very soon.